I'll start out with a reframe. So
Mm-hmm.
this is basically making yourself uncomfortable to make your partner comfortable will only perpetuate this problem.
Ooh, that's so good. Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
And nothing will get resolved from this because
Wow.
the only thing you're doing is teaching your partner to continue not making you feel good. And that's going to lead to what?
Yeah.
Resentment.
Yeah. Welcome to Courage Class. I'm Dr. Lindsay Kwok Hugh, and each week I'm in conversation with our community's changemakers and trailblazers. Together, we explore the unspoken parts of our Asian and Western experiences, finding strength, growth, and healing that reflect who we truly are, not who we've been told to be. I'm so glad you're here. Class is now in session. I'm always so curious around what brought people to this very important work of therapy, of supporting couples, of supporting individuals. Could you share a little bit about what led you to become a licensed clinical social worker and a certified sex therapist?
Yeah, so before I answer the question, I just wanted to just maybe name my identities so that people know my background. So yeah, I'm Korean American and I immigrated to United States when I was 6 years old. So just being a Korean American and female immigrant,
Mm,
and also in my family, when we moved here, we got really integrated in the church. So all of these kind of play a role in the reason why I became a therapist, specifically a sex therapist, because there was
right.
a lot of conservative upbringing, a lot of
Yes.
religious messaging, and I just remember as a child just being very curious,
Mm.
and um, even as young as like 8 or 9 years old, this was before the internet was invented, so
Yeah.
I would,
You and me both, Amy. I understand
yeah.
that.
Right. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
remember my family, we had this beautiful set of an encyclopedia and looking through the books like
Yeah.
sex and
Yeah.
what's puberty, what's,
Mm.
what are
Yeah.
genitals, like just
Yes.
like
Yes.
looking for information because I was just really curious and it was just something that no one really talked about.
Yeah.
and and also kind of growing up in the church, it was kind of this idea that there was a lot of heavy focus on abstinence, being pure, especially as a woman.
Hmm.
And I just remember there was a lot of feelings of like shame growing up, like sexual shame, because I was like, oh, like if I'm having certain thoughts, like what if I'm considered impure and
Yeah.
sinful and bad? And there was so much like a cognitive dissonant experience that I had because growing up, I was also pretty involved in the church in kind of leadership positions. So I was like, oh, I must not be a good Christian girl.
Ah,
So
yes.
there's a lot of sexual shame. But anyways, that's all to say, I became an adult and I went to school for social work and worked in community mental health for quite some time. And then when I opened my private practice, there's always a focus in finding your niche, finding what specialty are you really passionate about.
Mm.
And I knew that sex therapy was something that was just really interesting for me,
Yeah.
and something that a lot of my clients struggled with, but um, didn't have space to talk about it.
Yeah.
So and at the time, I didn't really feel that equipped in providing sex therapy. So that's why I joined the sex therapy program and got a lot of wonderful training to better equip myself. And I love it. I
Yeah.
100% love this work. It's my
Yeah.
passion. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of where it led me to.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you so vulnerably sharing your story. I can tell, I mean, at the moment that you said, I love this, I could just feel that over the
Mm,
screen. And
mhm.
so I really appreciate you sharing that. You also use some very important words that I wanted to just bring up because I think that it will really resonate with a lot of folks who are listening. You said conservative, no one really talked about it. You said there was a lot of sexual shame. You tried to look this information. I did too. through I remember those encyclopedias.
Yes.
That was like our source of information, right? I want to just point that out and say that that feels like that is something that's going to really resonate with our audience because I think generally, and again, this is like a broad statement, I think that we are taught to have a lot of sexual shame. This is not something that's unique to maybe our community, our Asian community, but definitely I think that there's an additional cultural layer of just we don't talk about this.
Hmm.
And I'm curious to know from you, Amy, you started talking about like the church, you shared your experience in church and being a leader in the church. Would you be willing to talk about how perhaps being an Asian woman, you're based in Orange County, California, how has your identity really shaped your lens on sexuality and even empowerment in asking for what you want and what you need?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so kind of going back to the message of like Asian females growing up in conservative cultures, it's kind of like, as you shared, you don't
Yeah.
talk about it,
Yeah.
or this idea that good girls don't talk about sex.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I think for me, I like to think of myself as a little bit of a risk taker. So I really want to challenge that notion and say, um, we should be still talking about sex loudly
Yes.
and boldly
Yes.
to really empower ourselves, especially as Asian women.
Mm.
And it's kind of like, I'm tired of being silenced. Like, I want to speak up. Like, my voice is so important.
Yes.
And I kind of want to also bring up another layer to it is Asian women typically, I think we're very hypersexualized.
Mm-mm.
So it's kind of having this fine balance where, um, okay, well, I don't want to be hypersexualized. I don't
Yeah.
want to be fetishized in my
Yes.
profession.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I need to share my truth. I need to
Yeah.
share with others that um, there's something just really sacred and embodied about talking about sex and
Yeah.
reclaiming really your sexuality as a superpower.
Yes.
So I really want to emphasize that.
Yeah. 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 No, I just love you said the word empowerment. You said there's something very empowering about just being embodied in just declaring like our own pleasure and how that's tied to if you can ask for what you want in your relationship, it feels as though these communicative skills or
Mhm.
this self-worth or confidence can translate to other areas of your life.
Yeah.
And I love that you really want to challenge this notion that, good girls, we don't ask for this, we don't talk about this. Could you speak to the connection between being able to say, this is what I like in bed and saying, I also deserve a raise at work? Or maybe I'm making too big of a leap, but are those concepts linked? And if they are, would you be willing to speak to that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I think they're totally linked. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
a good question in that, ultimately the core of it is a woman saying that I'm going to own my needs and desires. And when I'm able to assert myself, then you're also telling yourself that I am deserving of good things. So, yes, if you can say that in the workplace, amazing. If you can say that in the bedroom, amazing,
Yeah.
right? But it comes down to you really asserting your needs as valid,
Mm,
not letting all these other, white noise around tell you otherwise.
yeah.
But really saying, no, this is what I want, and this is what I'm gonna try to get, and I'm gonna get it.
And when you just said that, Amy, I felt like you were just like, it's so matter of fact. Nope, this is what I want. But there's a lot of like, well, I'll speak for myself. There's a lot of like thinking and like crafting and developing and undoing that
Uh-huh.
I personally have
Yeah.
to do. And I'm curious to know, I know you work with many clients around this, but would you be willing to share? Have you seen clients become more confident in other areas of their life as they become more assertive and communicative in the bedroom? Has there been a ripple? Have you actually seen the ripple effect happen?
If they share with me, yes,
Okay.
they'll tell me. Yeah.
Okay.
But it's interesting. This question was interesting in that I've seen like the opposite. So what I mean is a woman, she might be just killing it in the workforce. Like she's, going up the ranks. She's very,
She's like financially successful.
yeah, she's
Yeah.
like independent, successful, and just doing such a great job in the workplace. So she's able to be very empowered in that arena.
Mm,
The bedroom, she's like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can speak up here.
okay.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I've
Yeah.
actually seen more of that.
Okay.
Or, maybe it's a little bit more acceptable in a way for like independence in more of the workplace setting, but just something about in the sexual arena because of everything that we carry based on our lived experience of our experience of shame.
Yeah.
It can land differently in that way. So
Okay.
other way.
I see. I see. That's really interesting. That really challenges my preconceived notions. I think it's helpful to hear that, yes, you can be killing it in the workplace. And this is still something that women, Asian women, really struggle with. Why do you think that specifically Asian women in particular struggle to believe that our pleasure matters?
Yeah, I think it's because it kind of goes back to these unspoken messages.
Mm,
Um,
okay. Yeah.
Both unspoken messages, and we're not really taught that our pleasure matters. And because of the culture of silence, when we are not given the space to think about how does pleasure look like for me as an Asian woman, or just as a woman in general, um, there's just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of like we start to fill in the gaps with what we think it should look like
Mm,
based on what we see in the media or what society tells us. So there's just like a lack of information there.
yes.
Um, and also if you want to like look at the historically, I'm thinking of how really historically the ways Asian women, our bodies were used in service of others.
Yes.
Like there was the Japanese military. They
Mhm.
they used Korean girls and Korean women through sexual slavery. Through
Mm,
and so if there's a history of that,
yeah.
how can we get this messaging that our pleasure is ours
Yeah.
when there's historical, an intergenerational trauma, and not just Korean women. I'm just thinking just Asian women in general,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
there is that, and it's there's history that women carry in our bodies,
Yes.
and we hold on to that. So it can feel so scary to speak up
Yeah.
on what we want in the bedroom.
Yeah.
So it's about how can we untangle all that? How can we talk about these things? How can we process all of it to feel like we can speak up?
Yeah. As you were talking about the history specifically around Korean women, um, it just lays bare to me that this is such a deeply ingrained
Hmm.
understanding of like what our bodies are, who it's for, entitled to, like there's just so much disgusting messaging around our needs and our pleasure. And in fact, you're making me also think we had a guest, Danielle Espinoza, and she really took us through the history of Asian countries being conquested, women being sort of like the spoils of war, and how that was carried stateside, and how there's just sort of this unsaid belief or expectation around what our bodies are for. And so therefore this is, when I am talking about maybe the drama that goes on in my head around asking for what I need or what I want, it actually makes me exhale like, oh my gosh, like, okay, like if I can recognize the history or the intergenerational
Mhm.
patterns,
Right.
like that makes me feel like there's some tools
Mm.
around how I can unlearn that.
Mhm.
And knowing, just speaking from personal experience, it's not an easy road.
Uh,
I'm again so grateful because I know that you're here to help us sort of understand maybe what are some of these tools that or scripts or methodologies that we can really begin to recognize the importance and priority of what we need, whether it's in the bedroom or in the boardroom.
yeah. Yeah.
Amy, I'm wondering from you for women listening who feel like they've never been taught how to speak up
Mhm.
about sex, which I think in the Asian community generally, it's a lot of us. Where can I even begin? And how can my partner even support and empower me to
Mhm.
make me feel like I can speak up?
So, yeah, great question. And I always like to start with the individual before the
Mm.
partner.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay, yeah.
it's gonna be hard to speak up about sex if you don't know your relationship, your own relationship with your own body and sexuality.
Okay.
So I always say start with yourself and start with exploration of your own body. So
Mm,
for some people, they've never looked at their vulva. They've never looked at their genitals at all.
okay. Yep.
So I might say, hey, take a good look, get a mirror and take a look
Totally.
and know the names of your anatomy. So do you know where your clitoris is? Do you know where your vulva is? Do you know
Yeah.
where the labia is?
Yeah.
Really getting into your own body is a place I always like to start with,
Mm,
and knowing that really education is power for yourself.
okay.
Education, sex education, and a good knowledge of your own body is a great place to start.
Yeah.
And in terms of like, how can partners support? So I want the partners to do the same work. It's not all about just one partner doing everything and the other partner just kind of chilling.
Thank you for
It's
saying
about, yeah,
that.
yes, they have
Yeah.
to be just as invested in this process. And
Um,
sometimes that might be like, hey, you do the same thing, you do the same exercises. Can you look at your own genitals? Can you be curious about your own body?
yeah.
Curious about your partner's body as well. So starting out individually and then kind of branching out into the partnership and
Okay.
then talk about it together. If there's an openness and willingness to have these difficult conversations, always lead with curiosity,
Mm,
not judgment.
okay.
And I think when we lead with curiosity in having these very sensitive, conversations, that allows the partner to feel like, oh, my partner is really invested in this experience with me. This is not something that I just have to do alone,
Yeah.
right? And when we see that each partner is able to get curious about each other's inner world, then there's an openness, there's a spaciousness to have the partners be in this journey together.
I see. I see. Gosh, you
Yeah.
said an important question. You just named, you said this is a difficult conversation. And I really appreciate that because as you were sharing, you should be exploring your own genitalia. I'm going to out my sex ed person, but I don't even know if I know how to identify that. And so, but getting curious about that first with yourself and then asking your partner, I mean, he's going to kill me, but I don't talk about this stuff with my husband. Like,
Many don't. Like,
I appreciate you naming it as a difficult conversation because I imagine it can be maybe initially kind of awkward. But your point to lead with curiosity, that feels like that's a pretty critical component to this process. And with curiosity, it's almost like there's a permission to mess up or to say the wrong thing or you're going to say something awkward. So
yeah,
I appreciate that, Amy.
yeah. And I mean, and these conversations, obviously, it's not going to be like, your partner's just got home from work and is trying
Yeah.
to just like unwind. Hey, you want to talk about, you want to
The
talk about,
timing is important. Yeah.
yeah, the timing. Yeah, timing is
Yeah.
important and the way it's brought up. If there's already an understanding that one partner or both partners are in sex therapy or in counseling, and it's like, hey, I had a session today and this is what we talked about. Is it okay to
Mm.
maybe talk about it sometime later after dinner? Right. So kind of setting the scene in a way that feels more open. Yeah.
Okay, okay. That's really helpful. I think, in terms of setting the scene, are there scripts or is there like a methodology that you would recommend when you want to start to have these conversations?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I always like to tell my clients, hey, always put it on me. So what I mean is that, typically the partners, they know that their partner is in counseling And I'll say, hey, this is what we're going to talk about in therapy. And after session, if you're open to it, you can tell your partner, hey, I had a session today and Amy talked about something really interesting. And I was
Okay.
wondering, maybe we can talk about, ways we can spice up our sex life, or like how can we both work on reducing stress so that we can really carve out time for
Mm,
sex. So just always like put it on me, or I like to also recommend like podcasts or books.
yeah.
Just putting it back on these resources like, oh, I was reading this book, it was really interesting.
Mm,
I'm wondering like, what do you think about X, Y, and Z?
okay.
So it doesn't feel like so pointed, like, hey, like you are really lacking in this department, so you got to fix this, right?
Ah,
It's more about,
okay.
hey, I was reading this or I was listening to this, just kind of, made me think about something we can try together. So it
Yeah.
feels very non-threatening.
Okay. Okay. And I hear the leading with curiosity also embedded into that.
Yeah.
So, putting it on another resource, being able to say, hey, I heard it on a podcast is a great way to sort of spark that conversation. That's a very actionable thing. I feel like I could do tomorrow. And what I'm learning from you, Amy, is wow, what a relief. These are skills that I can actually learn to do. So I
Right.
really appreciate that. What would you say to a woman who feels afraid for asking for what she wants? Like she's afraid that he's going to be turned off by it, or he's afraid that she's going to be turned off by that.
Right.
How would you recommend if they're not on the same page?
Mhm. Yeah. And maybe for that, I'll start out with a reframe. So
Mm-hmm.
the reframe is basically making yourself uncomfortable to make your partner comfortable will only perpetuate this problem.
Ooh, that's so good. Oh, that's so good. Yeah.
And nothing will get resolved from this because
Wow.
the only thing you're doing is teaching your partner to continue not making you feel good. And that's going to lead to what?
Yeah.
Resentment,
Yeah. Oh
right?
man, that is so good because how
But
many people listening, caretakers, man, Asian women are
yep,
taught to be caretakers.
it's
Yeah.
hard. It's
Taking
hard
care
work.
of someone else's feelings. Wow.
Mhm.
Keep going. I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
So
so good.
basically, yeah, so basically it's that reframe,
Yeah.
And as a therapist, like it's like I'm like, I don't want that for you. I don't want you to keep in this cycle where
Okay.
you're continually yielding just to make your partner comfortable and happy. Because what does that do? It continues to invalidate your pleasure,
Yeah.
your experience when you are deserving of a powerful, embodied sex life for yourself, a
Oh,
pleasurable sex
so
life.
good. Yeah.
So that's what I want for you. So it's more of a reframe, right? If we kind of
Yeah.
think of it in that way, you're like, oh yeah, well, I don't want to perpetuate this, right?
Yes, yes,
So,
yes. And I can that feels like so translatable to other contexts of my life, right? If I keep my own desires or needs or wants to myself, like in a workplace or whatever, in a friendship or what have you, it's so unfair to you. It's like abandoning your own needs.
mm-hmm.
And in lieu of taking care of someone else, do you spend time doing like that specific work in sex therapy, like helping individuals sort of reframe so that they feel permitted to ask? Is
Yeah,
that,
that's part,
yeah,
yeah, that would be part of the work.
that would
Yeah.
be part of the work. Yeah.
Yeah. That's part of the work. And a lot of it in sex therapy is really sex ed. A lot of it is sex ed. And I think we don't know what we don't know, right? Until
Yeah.
you read a book about how a woman really struggles with having an orgasm through penetrative sex, that many women are more able to have an orgasm through clitoral stimulation.
Yeah.
But in our minds, we think what TV tells us is
Yeah.
oh, you just have
The
penis.
impassioned, yeah, the
Yeah, and then
impassioned sort of embrace, right?
yeah, and then you just have an orgasm and that's it. It's like, no, there's a whole process to it.
There's a whole process to it. And it sounds again like it's a learnable process.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. So through
so yeah,
education, I think that's can be helpful
that's
in
amazing.
learning. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Amy, so we've been talking about the individual. Could we talk how partners can support each other in growing sexually without shame or pressure. What does healthy sexual communication actually sound like in real life?
Yeah. So basically, I want this experience in partners supporting each other. Make it a team effort.
Making it a team
Yeah, make it a team
effort.
effort because if a partner blames the other, saying, hey, you're the reason why our sex life isn't great, it's just really a recipe for an immediate shutdown and defensiveness,
Yeah. Mm,
really increasing the shame. Like, oh my gosh, like I'm doing something wrong. I need to fix myself, right, to make things better. So, with supporting each other in this arena, it has to be a teamwork. It has to be
okay.
both partners agreeing that, hey, we're on the same team here. We both want to work on having a good sex life. And we both want to be open-minded and having some challenging discussions, right? So making sure that both of them are acknowledging this is a team effort. And
Yeah.
yeah, make it a couple goal. So basically, hey, we both love each other.
Yeah.
It's important to us and we care about each other's pleasure. So let's co-create a dynamic that helps each other grow.
Ooh, yeah.
And that can lead to feeling hopefully some sense of safety in the relationship to encourage each other in this arena.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that word co-create. And I'm curious to know, Amy, from your work, I we have spent some time on this podcast talking about the inequitable distribution of, like, let's say, household labor. It doesn't feel sometimes like teamwork. This is something that my husband and I have worked on in marriage therapy, and we're very open about it.
Yeah,
How do I
yeah.
have that conversation? That's such an important conversation. How do I, co-create an exploration around sex?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
good question. Yeah. It's it's really hard. It's a
Okay.
really hard
Yeah.
it's a really hard conversation, especially as you said, like typically women carry a lot of the invisible load, right? Especially if there's children, right? There's so
Yes.
much that they're carrying.
Yeah.
So going back to um what is the couple's goal here?
Okay. Okay.
So something I'll talk about in my sessions is this concept of sexual breaks and sexual accelerators. So the sexual breaks are like turn-offs for a partner. Like these are the things if, for instance, if there's like a dirty house, there's unwashed dishes, dirty laundry, it's a messy house, then maybe that might be a sexual break
Mm,
for one of the partners. And a sexual accelerator. So basically, what could allow one to feel more turned on is, yeah, there's a really connecting conversation before sex, or the house is clean, or they see their partner helping out with chores. That can be a turn on. They can be a sexual accelerators. So I'll see if
okay.
the couple is able to have a discussion on, hey, what are your sexual breaks and what are your sexual accelerators? I really want to know. And you can ask the same question to both.
Oh, that's so good.
So both parties can hear it directly. Hey, you know what? It's a break when this happens, and but it's also a an accelerator when this happens. So they can hear that language from the partner and like, this is what will help me get in the mood, and this is the things that doesn't help me get in the mood. So there's a shared understanding. Because again, going back to the ultimate couple goal in sex therapy is like, hey, we want to have a better sex life.
Yeah.
If that's their main goal, which
Yeah.
it typically could be in sex therapy.
Gosh, there's so much that you have to be explicit about. Like, it's
Yeah.
really so incredible to me, like, it's not just sort of a given that a man and a woman, like, the goal to sex, well, I think would be, to experience pleasure. But there's
Mhm.
a lot of conversations leading up to that moment, and you have to really be explicit about naming, to your point, what are the sexual breaks and what are the accelerators.
Yeah.
um, and I want to just highlight that about your work, because I think that I will speak for myself, and I think that I'm speaking for our listeners, some of our listeners anyways, that I just thought this was known. Like,
Mhm.
it's that and it's it's helpful to hear you say and normalize even, oh no, you have to have these very explicit conversations.
Yeah, yeah. Because I
Wow.
know, at least for me, I
Wow.
can have a whole story in my head. I
Yeah.
can create all the scenarios in my head, and then I'll have a conversation with my husband. He is like, "Where's this coming from?"
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I already thought things through. Like a lot of things are going in my brain, but
Yeah.
unless it's made explicitly, it's expressed explicitly, your partners can't read your mind.
Yeah.
And sometimes we think they could just because maybe if you've been together for years or decades, right? But there's a lot that's still unspoken. So it's like you said, I think that's a really great point. It has to be made explicitly.
Wow. Yeah.
Hey, when we have a clean home or when we have the kids, they have a babysitter, and these kind of are the scenes that allow me to feel more open to have sex with you, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's good information for each other to know that,
Yeah.
well, having that
Can I?
discussion.
Yeah. No, that's excellent. Amy, can I ask you a follow-up question to that?
Yes.
I'm so curious. Like, then is there like a time frame for learning that? Like, will it be 5 conversations that we have and then like we can stop having these conversations? Or is this something that like you just have to perpetually work at? Is it individual, couple to couple, individual to individual even?
Yeah, that's
What
a
have
good
you
question.
seen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so I noticed, at least in the work with my clients, there's kind of like the initial conversation, like
Okay.
presenting, hey, this is the sexual brakes, these are the sexual accelerators. Our desire is kind of like car gas pedals, like you can make it go or you can make it stop, right? And naming it. So there's
Mm,
kind of like the initial conversation that someone might have. And then there could be, it really depends. Maybe down the line there might be another conversation. But it's very case by case.
I
Yeah.
see.
But
I
it's not
see.
like something like you talk about it 5 times and you're done.
I
I just kind of like to think when we're talking about sex, just know that this is going to be a lifelong conversation you will have with your partner.
Okay. No, I think that that's like who says that? Like I didn't learn that in high school, like I think that's so helpful to know. Like these are lifelong conversations. So can your sexual preferences then change? Like
Oh
as
yeah,
like
they can.
depending on your age or
Uh-huh.
okay. Okay.
Totally. Yeah, yeah. Depending, yeah, on your new interest or curiosities, it can totally change.
I see. I see. I want to move to Amy's tools, wisdom, and resources. Amy, well, this has been it's such a tool driven and resource driven conversation. So we are certainly grateful to you for that. What is one tool or exercise you might recommend to someone who wants to start reconnecting with their pleasure today? Like the top tool that you would recommend?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So reconnecting with one's pleasure. I like to remind people that with pleasure, it doesn't always have to be a sexual thing. So especially when we're coming from a very gentle approach,
Mm,
I like to recommend from the lens of something pleasurable that you already do in your day-to-day life. So what I mean is, let's say you really enjoy a cup of coffee every morning, then allowing yourself to really savor all the senses of drinking this coffee and really slowing down and being
okay.
attuned to this process of, okay, I had this coffee. I'm noticing how this cup of coffee feels on my hands, noticing how the taste of the coffee feels on my tongue as I'm drinking this coffee and smelling the coffee. So really allowing yourself to savor the senses of this experience
Mm,
and letting that be a pleasurable experience for you. Because I think so often in our you know, busy life, it's
yeah.
just a hustle bustle culture, right? It's just
Yeah.
like one thing after another. All right, check. Next thing, check, right? And we don't allow ourselves to really experience the process of slowing down. So if you really enjoy your coffee, let that be your pleasurable experience,
Oh, wow. That's so
right?
great. Yeah.
Slowing down to that. And if it's not that, it can be something else. Like allow yourself to even like linger just a little bit longer when you're hugging a loved one
Mm,
or with your child. just a couple seconds more, right? Just kind of allowing yourself to experience pleasure in that way.
Yeah.
So it's these really slowing down moments that I think could really attune an individual to be like, oh, this feels good for me. It feels really nice. It feels very pleasurable. Right?
Yeah.
So that's kind of more of the non-sexual ways to engage
Yes.
in your pleasure. But
Yes. Yeah.
in terms of like sexual pleasure, if you want to reconnect in that way, I always encourage people, if it's okay with your practice, because some people aren't, they don't want to, and that's okay, masturbate. Get
Yeah.
to know what turns
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
on. Get to
Yeah.
know what feels good for you in your own body.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to say, how can you know what feels good for your own body if you don't experiment with yourself?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So masturbate. Nowadays, a lot of people are really into audio erotica. And that's
Mhm.
actually another really fantastic way to find out, ooh, what do I like? Or what turns me on? It's
Yeah.
like hearing the steamy story. Ooh, I like when this character did that. Ooh, I
Yeah.
wonder if I can try that in my own life, right? So there's audio erotica or just reading
Yeah.
erotic books.
Yeah.
That's another way to kind of tap into connecting with your pleasure.
Okay. That's great. One thing I hear from you is pleasure is really, first of all, we have to give ourselves permission to experience that. Whether it's lingering longer, a second longer, it feels as though you have to have so much presence or you
Mm,
have to train yourself to be really present in that moment. And that can be really hard for Asians generally and hustle culture. It's like go, 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 go.
yeah,
Um,
it's so challenging.
it's so,
Yeah. And
yeah.
I want to normalize how challenging it is, even as,
Okay.
as a sex therapist, like, yes, I'm sharing these things, but sometimes actually a lot of the time I struggle with this myself.
Yeah.
So this is hard work. So it's
Yeah.
really knowing that this is a practice that you get to work on.
You get to work
Yeah. And knowing that no one's gonna get it perfect. There's gonna be
on.
times when I'm trying to like meditate or trying to be present. I'm just like, oh my gosh, why do I feel this need to check my social media, right? Like
Yeah.
there's the distractions everywhere.
Yes. Yes.
That's so normal. So just knowing that this is a learning practice.
It's a
It's okay.
practice.
Yeah.
I just love that you have just normalized that for all of us. That is going to change people's perspective for sure. Are there things or hacks maybe that clients have done that can encourage us to be more present and to take pleasure in whatever's happening in that present moment?
Yeah, so something I might recommend is because we're so busy all the time, I
Yeah.
might say, hey, just, set an alarm on your phone. So let's
Okay.
say 12 o'clock.
Yeah.
Your phone's gonna set an alarm. So that's your moment for just 3 minutes.
Mm.
Can you, let's say you're having your lunch, can you allow yourself to be very mindful of the food that you're chewing, the texture of the food? How is that experience like for you? So it's kind of like finding little pockets in the day. Again, even if it's 3 minutes in one day, you're allowing yourself to slow down and just kind of notice the senses. I think that's a really great place to start.
Yeah, no, that's wonderfully actionable. That's something I can for sure right after this podcast rather. You have really made what felt like coming into this podcast, what felt like such an intimidating, a scary conversation. In fact, you named it as a difficult conversation, but there are so many actionable things that I can do. And I can even scaffold myself into my own sort of sexual pleasure if I want to just experience my coffee. You have made it really easy for us to take ownership of that, Amy. And I'm so grateful to you for that.
Yeah,
I,
happy to share.
yeah, I imagine that not every sex therapist is equal. And I'm wondering and if you don't have access, if you don't live in Orange County and you don't have access to Amy, how can people work with you, first of all? And how can they and or find a sex therapist who's a good fit? Are there questions they should be asking? I know you have a wonderfully detailed blog on this, and so I'm going to refer people to that. But if you would be willing to share.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. So if you want to reach me, it's through my website,
Okay.
amyfuruyama.com. And then
Okay.
I have an Instagram page, which is Therapy with Amy.
Okay.
But to find a sex therapist, so I'm certified under AASECT, which is the governing kind of organization of American sex therapists.
Mm.
And we go through a very rigorous training. And so for me, it took me like at least 2 years of training to become a certified sex therapist. So I always recommend people to the AASECT directory
Mm. Okay.
and also do the 15-minute consultation with a sex therapist first and just kind of get a sense in, first of all, what are you seeking sex therapy for?
Mm.
And see if the therapist is able to kind of tell you how they can help you.
Mm.
And just also know what under the sex therapy umbrella, there are a lot of different specialties. So there are some sex therapists who might focus more on people who are interested in like opening up their marriage, so ethical non-monogamy. So
Mm.
there are sex therapists who specialize in that, and then there are sex therapists who specialize a little bit more in other arenas like
Okay.
sexual trauma or navigating
Mm.
one's queer identity and things like that. So kind
Mm.
of figure out what is it that you're really seeking.
Okay.
Then you can look on the directory
Okay.
and see what's out there.
Okay. Okay. Just a follow-up question. Are there any questions? Like, let's say you don't actually know what the goal of sex therapy might be. Are are there any key questions that an individual can ask?
Yeah. So, one question I will ask when I'm doing a consult with a potential client
Yeah.
is, how would you know that you've met your goals in sex therapy?
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
that gets them thinking, oh, how would I know? Well,
Yeah.
I would know I would have completed my goals in therapy if I'm able to now communicate with my partner about sex without
Okay.
it being so tension filled, or am able to find out what are my sexual interests or likes, right? And feel comfortable sharing that with my partner. Like it kind of just gets them to think of how would I show up in the space if I know my goals are met.
Ah,
From
okay.
another really, yeah.
So really trying to get at like what is the outcome and being
Yeah.
able to actually say that out loud to
Yeah.
yourself. Okay, that's great. Gosh,
Yeah.
this has been such an enlightening conversation. I have to be honest. Like I did not know that you had to have such explicit conversations
Yeah.
and how important it is to start with yourself. I just so appreciate you normalizing these
Yeah.
processes for us. Speaking of your work, is there anything that you wanted to share with the community, things that you're working on?
I'm really interested in starting a sexual empowerment women's group. Um, and I've been wanting to start a group for a while now, and so this question is keeping me accountable.
Hmm.
I really want to start a sexual empowerment women's group, maybe having a group of maybe 6 to 8 women who are really interested in tapping into their sexuality and feeling empowered in that
That's
arena.
amazing.
Hopefully, 2026, I'm going to start one.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Mm.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you for,
Yes.
again, thank you for this space. And it makes me so happy to be able to talk
Yeah.
about sex and people feel empowered. So,
Yes. Yes. And really normalizing it for especially the Asian community in general.
right. Yeah.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of Courage Class. I hope today's conversation gave you a little encouragement and inspiration. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. And for extra motivation, tools, and behind the scenes content, sign up for my newsletter. I'd love to share with you more there. See you next time.